Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Nara Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome for the Bhagavatam class. So we were yesterday at shloka number 9. We had just completed shloka number 9. Sorry, 8. So we are going to move on to shloka number 9. So if you see from shloka number 8 to 12, we have the description of the super soul. So dharana on the Paramatma is actually more superior to dharana on the Virat Rupa. Dharana means meditation. So the meditation on the Paramatma form of the Lord is more better than the meditation on the Virat root. So now this is the description of the Paramatma. And this is a very beautiful description. Prasanna Vaktram Nalinaya Tekshanam Kadamba Kinjala Pishakvasasam Lasanna Maharatna Hiranya Mayan Gadam Spuran Maharatna Kirita Kundalam. His mouth expresses his happiness. His eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. So his mouth expresses his happiness. The Lord is always in bliss. If you see the smile of the Lord is always very beautiful. Anybody who sees the smile of the Lord, all his miseries vanish off. So further he says, Unindra Hrit Pankaja Karani Kalaye Yogeshwarastha Pita Pada Pallavam Shri Lakshanam Kaustubha Ratnakandhara Amalana Lakshamya Vanamalya Chittam. Lakshminarayan Rup, please read the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mata Hare Krishna Dhanakara. Translation. His lotus feet are placed over the walls of the lotus-like herds of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel engraved with a beautiful calf, and there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Purport. The ornaments, flowers, clothing, and all the other decorations on the transcendental body of the Personality of Godhead are identical with the body of the Lord. None of them are made of material ingredients. Otherwise, there would be no chance of their decorating the body of the Lord. As such, in the Paravyomya, spiritual varieties are also distinguished from the material variegatedness. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So there is one question in the chat box. Is this appearance in the spiritual sky? Right? No. This appearance is in the heart of the yogi, the one who is meditating on the Paramatma. So he is meditating on the super soul within his heart. Further he says, Vibhushitam mekhalayanga priyake mahadhaner nupura kanakanadibhi snigdha amala kunchita neelakuntale virochamananaha hasapeshalam. Yeah, Priyanka, please read the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Translation. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most beautiful person amongst all others, and Srila Sukadev Goswami describes every part of his transcendental beauty one after another in order to teach the impersonalist that the personality of Godhead is not an imagination by the devotee for facility of worship, but is the Supreme Person in fact and figure. The impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth is but his radiation, as the sun rays are but radiations from the sun. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So, if you see in the 10th shloka, he's saying that this heart of the yogi is compared to this lotus, and the Lord is seated in the whirl of the lotus-like heart of this particular yogi. So, this is what actually the description is. And then in this 11th shloka, I'm sorry, where am I? I just got lost. Yeah, in this 11th shloka also, he's saying that he's giving the further description. He's saying that the Lord is well decorated with ornaments, the ornaments of his waist, fingers, bangles, leglet, how his hair are his hair straight or curly. So very, very clear description about the Lord has been given over here. Adina Leela Hasite Kshano Lasada Bhrubhanga Samsuchita Bhurya Nugraham Ikshite Chintamaya Menan Mishwaram Yavan Manodharanaya Vatishtate. So this is the 12th shloka. Oh, the purport is very long. We'll divide it into two. Anuprabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benedictions. One must therefore concentrate on this transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. Purport. In Bhagavad-gītā 12.5, it is said that the impersonalist undergoes a series of difficult programs on account of his impersonal meditation. But the devotee, due to the Lord's personal service, progresses very easily. Impersonal meditation is therefore a source of suffering for the impersonalists. Here, the devotee has an advantage over the impersonalist philosopher. The impersonalist is doubtful about the personal feature of the Lord, and therefore he always tries to meditate upon something which is not objective. For this reason, there is an authentic statement in the Bhagavatam regarding the positive concentration of the mind on the factual form of the Lord. The process of meditation recommended herein is Bhakti Yoga, or the process of devotional service, after one is liberated from the material conditions. Jnana Yoga is the process of liberation from the material conditions. After one is liberated from the conditions of material existence, that is when one is nivritta, as previously stated herein, or when one is freed from all material necessities, one becomes qualified to discharge the process of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga includes Jnana Yoga. In other words, the process of pure devotional service simultaneously serves the purpose of Jnana Yoga, because liberation from material conditions is automatically achieved by the gradual development of pure devotional service. These effects of Bhakti Yoga are called anartha nivritti. Things which are artificially acquired gradually disappear along with the progress of Bhakti Yoga. Meditation on the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, the first processional step, must show its effect by anartha nivritti. The grossest type of anartha, which binds the conditioned soul in material existence, is sex desire. And this sex desire gradually develops in the union of the male and female. When the male and female are united, the sex desire is further aggravated by the accumulation of buildings, children, friends, relatives, and wealth. When all these are acquired, the conditioned soul becomes overwhelmed by such entanglements, and the false sense of egoism, or the sense of myself and mine, becomes prominent. And the sex desire expands to various political, social, altruistic, philanthropic, and many other unwanted engagements, resembling the foam of the sea waves, which become very prominent at one time and at the next moment vanishes as quickly as a cloud in the sky. The conditioned soul is encircled by such products, as well as products of sex desire, and therefore Bhakti Yoga leads to gradual evaporation of the sex desire, which is summarized in 3 headings, namely profit, adoration, and distinction. All conditioned souls are mad after these different forms of sex desire, and one shall see for himself how much he has been freed from such material hankerings based primarily on the sex desire. As a person feels his hunger satisfied after eating each morsel of foodstuff, he must similarly be able to see the degree to which he has been freed from sex desire. The sex desire is diminished along with its various forms by the process of Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti Yoga automatically, by the grace of the Lord, effectively results in knowledge and renunciation, even if the devotee is not materially very well educated. Knowledge means knowing things as they are, and if by deliberation it is found that there are things which are at all unnecessary, naturally the person who has acquired knowledge leaves aside such unwanted things. When the conditioned soul finds by culture of knowledge that material necessities are unwanted things, he becomes detached from such unwanted things. This stage of knowledge is called vairagya, or detachment from unwanted things. We have previously discussed that the transcendentalist is required to be self-sufficient and should not beg from the rich blind persons to fulfill the bare necessities of life. Shukadev Goswami has suggested some alternatives for the bare necessities of life, namely the problem of eating, sleeping, and shelter, but he has not suggested any alternative for sex satisfaction. One who has the sex desire still with him should not at all try to accept the renounced order of life. For one who has not attained to this stage, there is no question of a renounced order of life. So by the gradual process of devotional service, under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, and following the principles of the Bhagavatam, one must be able at least to control the gross sex desire before one accepts the renounced order of life factually. So purification means getting free gradually from sex desire. And this is attained by meditation on the person of the Lord, as described herein, beginning from the feet. One should not try to go upwards artificially without seeing for himself how much he has been released from the sex desire. The smiling face of the Lord is the 10th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and there are many upstarts who had once tried to begin with the 10th canto, and especially with the 5 chapters which delineate the Rasa Leela of the Lord. This is certainly improper. By such improper study or hearing of the Bhagavatam, the material opportunists have played havoc by indulgence in sex life in the name of Bhagavatam. This vilification of Bhagavatam is rendered by the acts of the so-called devotees, who should be free from all kinds of sex desire before he tries to make a show of recital of Bhagavatam. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clearly defines the import of purification as cessation from sex indulgence. He says, Yata yata dishcha sudyati veshya lampatyam tajagyati tata tata dharyat iti chita shuddhi tara tame yaneva dhyana tarat tamyam uktam. And as one gets free from the intoxication of sex indulgence by purification of intelligence, one should step forward for the next meditation. Or in other words, the progress of meditation on the different limbs of the transcendental body of the Lord should be enhanced in proportion to the progress of purification of the heart. The conclusion is that those who are still entrapped by sex indulgence should never progress to meditation above the feet of the Lord. Therefore, recital of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by them should be restricted to the first and second cantos of the great literature. One must complete the purificatory process by assimilating the contents of the first 9 cantos. Then one should be admitted into the realm of the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So, just to make something very clear, I would like to share something, okay? Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So, if you see over here, this is actually a guide to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This guide is available as a Kindle form also. The guide name is Bhagavad Subodhini, Cantos 1 and 2, written by His Grace Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. So it has a Kindle version also, and it has a hard copy also. So we are here on 8th shloka. So from 8th shloka to 12th shloka, the description of the super soul is given. Dharana Ashraya for the advanced detached yogi. So detached means this yogi is detached, and that is why he is not attached to all this sex desires and all. So this is the 8th shloka is the description of the Supreme Lord. Where is he situated? Then the other description is also given about the law, that his eyes are like lotus petals and all. and lotus feet on the heart of the mystics. And then we are here at this 12th. His pastimes, smiling glances, and shining eyebrows show his mercy. One should meditate on his form until the mind remains in a concentrated state, that is dharana. So now we'll go on dhyan. Dhyan on whom then? This particular yogi is actually meditating on the Paramatma. Dhyan lagana jisko bolte na Hindi mein. So see, there are two types of yogis. One yogi is the person who is meditating on the Virat Rupa. There is another yogi who is meditating on the Paramatma form. So currently we are discussing on that yogi who is meditating on the Paramatma form. The last chapter we saw that yogi who is meditating on the Virat Rupa. And this particular chapter is speaking about that yogi who is meditating on the Paramatma form of the Lord. Okay, so things will be more clearer. Again, let's just share. Yeah, we'll go to the 13th. So this 13 and 14 will primarily speak about dharana ashray for both the kinds of the yogis then. One who is attached, one who is detached. Okay. So even within the Paramatma meditator also, again, there are two types of yogis. One who is attached and one who is detached. Okay. Sorry, I'll just read this. Recite this shloka. Ekaikasho angani dhyano bhavayet padadi yavad sitam gadabhruta jitam jitam sthana mahopa maho sthanam pohaya dharayet param param shuddhayati dhiryata yatha. Swati Mataji, please read the 13th
Hare Krishna Mataji.
translation and purport both.
Mataji. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then thighs, and in this way, higher and higher, the more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Purport. The process of meditation recommended in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchid Ananda Vigraha, are described in scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms and there are unauthorized representation of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord and gradually raising higher and higher up to his smiling face. According to the Bhagavata school, the Lord's rasa dancing is the dancing is the smiling face of the Lord. Since it is recommended in this verse that one should gradually progress from the lotus feet up to the smiling face, we shall not jump at once to understand the Lord's pastime in the rasa dance. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulsi to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, we gradually become purified by the archana process. We dress the Lord, bathe him, etc. All these transcendental activities help us purify our existence. When we reach the higher standard of purification, if we see the smiling face of the Lord or hear the rasa dance pastimes of the Lord, then we can relish his activities. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, therefore, the rasa dance pastimes are delineated in the 10th canto, chapters 29 to 34. The more one concentrates on the transcendental form of the Lord, either at the lotus feet, the calf, the thighs, or the chest, the more one becomes purified. In this verse, it is clearly stated: the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present conditioned state of life is impaired due to being engaged in sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of meditation is purification of one's intelligence. Those who are too engrossed in sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in archana or to touch the transcendental form of Radha, Krishna, or Vishnu deities. For them, it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord as recommended in the next verse. The impersonalists and the voidists are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple, because the impersonalists and the voidists are not sufficiently purified in their spiritual activities. Archana is not meant for them. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you, Dandavat.
Yeah. So see, those who are engrossed in sense gratification, okay, they actually meditate on the Virat Rupa of the form. Okay, anybody who's doing sense gratification, but at the same time, he wants liberation also, then he's meditating on the Virat Rupa. And then if somebody wants, to, just give me 1 minute, okay? My mother is calling me. Sorry. So now anybody is doing, any yogi who wants to do sense gratification but wants liberation also, and so he has to meditate on the Virat Rupa. Now if a yogi, he wants liberation and he is attached also. There are, so in this part where a yogi wants liberation but he is attached, and there is another yogi who is detached. So both these yogis who are attached and detached, they are actually suggested that they meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So if you see in this particular 13th shloka, so Dharana Ashray, is for 2 yogis. Okay. So anybody who is meditating on for liberation, then that particular person is meditating on the Paramatma form of the Lord only. But one person who still is attached, and there is another yogi who is actually detached. Detached from what then? Detached from sense gratification, like this. Let's see the next shloka. Yavanna jayate paravaresmin vishveshvare drashtari bhakti yoga tavad sorry tavat stha viya purushasya rupam kriyavasane prayata smareta. So this particular 14th shloka, let's see what it speaks. Yeah, Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu, please read the transcript and interpret both.
Yes, Mataji, do you hear any noise? Some drum kind something?
Currently not.
Okay, Mataji, then no problem. Some procession is going on.
No, currently not.
Okay, Mataji. Translation. Unless the gross materialist develop a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. Purport: the Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds, as come from the Bhagavad-gītā 5.29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not a fit place for living entities because they are all spiritually one with the Lord, and in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of material world. The Lord wants all living entities who are his parts and parcels to live with him in the transcendental world and for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world. All the Vedas and the revealed scriptures are there expressly to recall the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned living entities, although suffering continually the threefold miseries of conditioned life, are not very serious about going back to Godhead. It is due to their misguided way of living, complicated by sins and virtues. Some of them who are virtuous by deeds begin to re-establish the lost relation with the Lord, but they are unable to understand the personal feature of the Lord. The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. That is the natural position of the living entities. But those who are impersonalized and are unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa or universal form. Some way or other, one must try to re-establish one's forgotten relation with the Lord if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life and to reclaim his natural, unfettered condition. For the less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal future, the Virat Rupa or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to personal contact. One is advised herewith to meditate upon the Virat Rupa specified in the previous chapters in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the world, Lord's Virat form. This sort of thinking is also a type of meditation on the absolute truth, and as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhuji, thank you very much. So in this 14th shloka, till that point one has not developed a devotional disposition towards the Lord within the heart. Till that time he has to continue because of the impurities that are there within the heart. If he is not able to meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord and offer his worship to that form, he has to meditate then on the gross form of the Lord. So while performing the prescribed duties, which means he is not yet qualified to give up that prescribed duties. So Krishna also in the Bhagavad-gītā, what is that chapter number? I think it is 6th chapter number. Yeah, see. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So, for a practitioner in the beginning stage of yoga, his perfection is achieved by performing his prescribed duties. And when in the beginning stage of yoga, if he's having perfection and he's achieved by performing his prescribed duties, so then when he's doing his prescribed duties simultaneously, he has to even meditate on the Virat form of the Lord. So whereas the person who is qualified to meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord, or he's on the Yoga Rudha stage, his success comes from giving up the prescribed duties, because his heart is sufficiently purified. Therefore, he does not gain anything by performance of prescribed duties, nor does he lose anything. So, except that he loses time by performing his prescribed duties, which he can use in meditating on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So, such a person, he gives up by giving up his prescribed duties. And Krishna says that such a person, neither does he gain anything by performing his prescribed duties, because whereas a person on the level of who is Nishkam Karma Yogi, what does he gain by performing prescribed duties? So he is gaining this Nishkam Karma Yogi is also performing his prescribed duties. And a person, a normal Karma Kandi is also performing his prescribed duties. So the Nishkam Karma Yogi, when he is performing his prescribed duties, what is he gaining by performing prescribed duties? He is gaining purification of the heart. Whereas this Jnani or this Ashtanga Yogi, who is qualified to meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord in his heart, he is already sufficiently purified. Therefore, when by this detached performance of prescribed duties, his heart does not become any more purified. So, he need not continue to perform his prescribed duties, but he will lose valuable time. So, he can use in meditating on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So, therefore, it is mentioned in this particular shloka that this Yoga Rurukshu stage, that is the highest rug in the Yoga Rudha stage. So, but all in all, the complete ladder is called Yoga, and it will be divided into three, namely Gyan Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. The beginning of the ladder is called Yoga Rurukshu stage, and the highest rug of this particular stage is called the Yoga Rudha stage. So, his progress depends upon giving up the prescribed duties and concentrating his mind on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So, this is what is said in this particular shloka. Let's go to the next shloka. Stiram sukham chasanam astito yatir yada jihasur imamangalokam kale cha deshe cha manoj sajjayet pranan niyachena manasa jitasu. Okay, there is one question in the chat box. Let me just take this quick question. Oh, in fact, there are two questions. What is he saying? So, Mataji, one who is attached to the material world should meditate on the Virat Rupa. Once he becomes detached, he then advances and goes to meditate. Yes, I've answered that. So, Mataji, one who is attached to the material world should meditate on the Virat Rupa. Once he becomes, okay, that is the same question. Yeah. Correct. Your understanding is correct. Yeah. Okay. Translation and purport. Brinda, read translation and purport.
Yeah. Translation. O King, Whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed and regulating the life air, should control the senses by the mind. Purport. In the Bhagavad-gītā 8.14, it is clearly stated that a person who is totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and who constantly remembers him at every step easily obtains the mercy of the Lord by entering into his personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body, but those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruitive action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting this body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.23 to 26. But these opportune moments are not as important as once being a successful yogi who is able to quit his body as he likes. Such a yogi must be competent to control his senses by the mind. The mind is easily conquered simply by engaging it at the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, by such service, all the senses become automatically engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the way of merging into the Supreme Absolute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Brinda. So, see, one important quality of this meditator over here is that he need not bother to give up his life at an auspicious time or place. Because now Krishna is saying over here in 18th shloka, he says over there that, what is that shloka? Ananya cheta satatam yo mam smarati nityasa tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina. So over there Krishna is saying that who is always remembering me without any deviation from the path, then he's saying that I'm very easily obtainable to that particular person. Why? Because he's constantly engaged in my pure devotional service. So this is the actually he's describing the final destination for this who are pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, and who's constantly remembering the Supreme Lord. So, in from now this 15th shloka till the 21st shloka, the practice and process of living of this advanced yogi who's already advanced, by meditating on the Supreme Lord, who's done pranayam also and pratyahara also, and asanas in his posture and all everything. So this has been actually said. So samadhi at that level of purification is not comparable to the level achieved by this devotee mentioned in this purport by Srila Prabhupada. But there is a example also that even Vishwamitra meditated, but what exactly happened to him? Like, so when this yogi, he's perfecting his asana, like when he's doing pranayam and when he's doing pratyahar, and if he desires to leave this world and achieve liberation, and he is ready for it, then such a person, he does not become attached to a particular time or place. Sometimes people think I should go in the morning, I should go at an auspicious time. No. So that is why in this particular shloka of this Bhagavad Gita and this particular shloka also, so there are no proper Krishna is describing three kinds of practitioners. He's saying about the Virat Rup meditator also, he's telling about the Paramatma meditator also, and then he's talking about the Karma Kandi person also. So when he mentions about the Virat Rup meditator, he he's waiting till this Uttarayan for dying for Uttarayan. So because that's the favorable time to achieve liberation. And when he is talking about the karma kandi to go to the heavenly planets, then that is Dakshinayan. And that is a favorable time. But when he is talking about the advanced yogi, so an advanced yogi is one who is, qualified to meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord. And he is not bewildered by these two paths of Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. He does not think to hold his life air to leave either in the Dakshinayan or the Uttarayan, and or that time to come as such. So, such a yogi who is qualified for such a direct liberation, meditating on the Paramatma form, he gives up his body. So, what can we devotees learn from this? That we don't need to seek an opportune moment to leave even our present body. So, this yogi, what he does is he merges the mind in the intelligence. Why? Because the intelligence is the controller of the mind. And this describes that how the yogi reaches to the stage of samadhi is very much similar to the description of how Yudhishthir Maharaj, when he is giving up his body, is explaining the process where the Pandavas, they are retiring timely in that particular chapter, what we had discussed long back. So this yogi takes this mind and he's offering it to the intelligence, and it takes the intelligence, it is offering it to the jiva, and then the jiva is offering it to the Brahman. So what is this process of offering? So now Srila Prabhupada is saying that it is a mental offering. It is a mental offering that is actually, he'll be actually speaking in the other subsequent what do you say, purport also, that he's offering it is a mental offering, because intelligence is the controller of the mind, that is the material mind, you can say. So this yogi who has reached this Brahman realization, who is convinced that he is not the body but he is the spirit soul, then he goes to the material intelligence and he's saying that, my dear intelligence, I no longer have a need for this material mind. And since you are the controller of this material mind, you please take it back again. So then this is a very mental offering that he does, and he tells the soul that, okay, you are the controller of the material intelligence. I do not need you now. Now please take it back. So then he's offering, he offers that soul also to this Brahman, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Mame vancha jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana. So like this, he makes a very mental offering, and thus he is detaching himself, or he detaches his soul from the subtle and the gross body, both. And let's see what is being said in the 16th shloka. Thereafter, the yogi should, I'm sorry. Manasva buddhaya malaya niyamam kshetragna eta ninayeta tamatmanin atmanam atmani avruddhaya dhiro labdho pashanti viramet krutayat. Anuprabhu, please read the translation and purport both. 16th.
Translation. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity, and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction, so that he ceases from all other activities. Purport. The function of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing. When the mind is materialistic or absorbed in material contact, it acts for material advancement of knowledge, destructively ending in discovery of nuclear weapons. But when the mind acts under spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life in complete bliss and eternity. Therefore, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is, in all circumstances, a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. But even while executing such dictations of different temperaments, he is perpetually unhappy. When one actually feels this and turns his intelligence to inquiring about it from the right sources, he gets information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Instead of serving materially for the above-mentioned different humors of the body, the living entity's intelligence then becomes freed from the unhappy illusion of materialistic temperament. And thus, by unalloyed intelligence, the mind is brought into the service of the Lord. The Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore, the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord. And thus the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendently. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates to him to act according to his desire. And when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. In his pure, unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, labdo pasanti, and ceases all material hankerings.
So this Labdopashanti is actually cessation from all material life. That is called Brahman realization. Brahma Bhutas Prasannatma na Soshiti na Kankshati. This particular stage. So Prabhupada is also, very nicely, explaining this wonderful purport. And he gives one example of this coconut, which is completely ripe coconut. And it has shrunk and detached itself from the shell. So he has reached a stage called this Labdopashanti. Okay. And means, cessation from all this material life. And he has not yet received liberation, but he has reached the Brahman realization stage, Brahma Buddha Prasanatma stage. So from this stage, now this Labdopashanti stage say, he can go to he can either, what he can do is that he can go to, just a sec, okay. From this Labdava Shanti stage, either he can go two places. Okay, from this stage, he may choose to merge into the Brahma Jyoti or merge into the Brahma Jyoti by giving up his body by the practice of this Shata Chakra Yoga. Or he may choose another path to practice Bhakti Yoga and further perfect his life. So he can do either Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Labate Param. And then there is another shloka also, Bhakta Mam Abhijanati. So then he may continue to practice that Para Bhakti and achieve success. Or he may choose to merge into the impersonal Brahman. Another, third thing also. He can choose to, merge into three things. So, three things are over here. From this Labdapa Shanti stage, what he can do, that he may choose to merge into the Brahma Jyoti, or he may become a pure devotee, or then he can, merge into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. So now from this Labdava Shanti stage, then, he has a choice what he wants to do. So, one who reaches this Brahman stage is very difficult for him to, come to another stage. Let's see the next 17 shloka, what Srila Sukadeva Goswami has to say. Okay, there's another question and let me answer that question. Okay, fine. No question. Yeah. न यत्र कालो अनिमीषा परं प्रभु कुतो न देव जगताय ईशिरे न यत्र सत्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्. So this is the 17th one. 17th one is a little longer one. Should we take the 17th one tomorrow? Why? Because from 17 there is a lot of explanation, a lot of what you say, explanation. Is 17 lot explanation, 19, 20, 21, lot of explanation is there. I think we'll do this tomorrow, Friday. Because there's a lot of explanation. Maybe what I'll do is, again, I'll give a recap of 15, 16 also. And I might draw some charts also, so it is very easy. Who's this yogi? Who's this practitioner? What are they doing? What is a Gyan yogi doing? Dhyan yogi doing? Maybe I'll prepare these charts and then it will become more clearer as such. So, dear devotees, thank you so much. We'll meet tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh yeah, what is it? Yeah, it will be helpful. Okay, yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Pranam.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam. Yeah, Priyanka, don't worry. That confusion will see to it, okay, it will be removed. Even I was very confused.